This is Dennis Raimondi with the Coffee League, found at thecoffeeleague.com. Follow me on Instagram at the Coffee League. Plug into my blogcast, my podcast. Lots of great interviews there. My guest today, Silja Lofgren. She is from Helsinki, Finland, where she is now working with Good Life Coffee Roasters. And I've had a lot of guests from uh, the Nordic countries, but not from Finland, although I did have Michaela Javard, who was a former Finnish barista champion, now at Coffee Collective in Copenhagen. But really excited to have somebody who's actually living, working, and a part of the coffee community in Finland. Celia, thank you so very much for coming on to my show today.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Great. My understanding, you sent me some information on yourself. It was that you were somebody who was studying in school for baking, and as
Yes.
part of your internship, you got involved in coffee, and then, like many people, really took to it. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to getting involved with coffee.
Well, it was a kind of accident.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about specialty coffee before I started roasting.
Mm-hmm.
So there was, uh, I think there was one cupping event
Mm-hmm.
in Helsinki, and I was really curious what that means and what's happening. And in there, I met some coffee people and I got more interest. Um,
You got more interested in the coffee end of things.
yes, and inspired about that.
Now, at that time, were you drinking coffee yourself, or was coffee something sort of foreign to you and you just drank whatever coffee was there to get a little caffeine?
Yeah, I drank not much coffee, but I think mostly didn't really
Mm-hmm.
um, looking after what I'm drinking. It was just coffee.
Right.
But after that internship, uh, I learned a lot, and I got more interesting about coffee, and I got stuck with that.
You got the bug. And then when you first went into coffee, when you were doing the internship and all, were you training as a barista? Were you roasting? What end of it did you get in?
It was both. I was working as a barista at a cafe they had,
Mm-hmm.
and also roasting uh, at the roastery. It
Right.
was a small company. They just bought the roaster. It was a 5 kilo pro pot,
Mm-hmm.
and they gave me the manual and some green coffees and said that I can try and learn by roasting.
Was there
So
one person that you worked with closely that taught you a lot, or did you work with several people?
I was working with a small team. We were all together 3 people,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, mostly I just learned um, by doing and tasting and asking a lot of questions from other roasters in Helsinki,
Mm-hmm.
also in Germany when I was traveling.
Mm-hmm.
So
And did you have any experience as a barista also, or were you always on the roasting end of things?
I had a little experience as barista.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Before I went to the bakery school, I were working in a small cafe in Helsinki,
Mm-hmm.
but they were mostly doing lunch and breakfast things and
Mm-hmm.
not really focused to the coffee.
Right. Right. And so right now, your time is mostly spent roasting. Is that the main end of things where you are now?
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
And what is like in Scandinavia and the Nordic countries, and they're very well known for lighter roasts. You get into Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and is that also the case in Finland, where it's mostly
Yes,
single origin and lighter roast? Is that's the case there as well?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's the thing, and it's fantastic. Actually, in the United States now, that's becoming very, very popular. So when you work in the cafes in Helsinki, do most people come in to get a shot of espresso, to get a cappuccino? Do many people get pour over? What are popular coffee drinks in the specialty coffee cafes in Finland?
I think a lot of people want to drink espresso-based
Hmm.
coffees when
Hmm.
they are in cafe.
Hmm.
Because Finns are drinking so much filter coffees at home
Right.
or at work. But in specialty coffee business, I think uh, I can't say any numbers, but I have the feeling that people are also drinking a lot of filter coffees,
Right.
like both of us.
Right. And then what countries do you like your coffees coming from? I read one place that you selected Guatemala as one area, but are you getting, where are some of the countries that you enjoy most?
At the moment, I enjoy Guatemalan coffees.
Mm-hmm.
They are really bright and juicy.
Mm-hmm.
Also, of course, this season is now good for Kenyans.
Mm-hmm. It,
Um, it depends,
it depends,
but
and it's very seasonal.
Guatemalan are my
Yeah.
favorites.
Mm-hmm. And when you roast, do you just do single origin, or do you
Yeah.
create blends there as well?
Well, now at Good Life Coffee, we
Mm-hmm.
do only single origins.
Mm-hmm.
But before, in my previous roastery where I was working, the Roasted Company,
Mm-hmm.
there we did a lot of blends.
Great. And do you uh, uh, do you send your coffee to many cafes? And if so, is it mostly in Finland, or do you export outside of Finland as well? Well,
Well, we are quite an international roastery.
mm-hmm.
We have many customers outside of Finland, also outside of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's quite interesting.
Mm-hmm. So you can do that. What is your website? Because we have people listening in that might want to try your coffee, and I'm always happy to promote the businesses of any of my guests. Where Because my guests are very highly selected. I only have folks on that are very good with coffee. What is your website? Where could people find out about what you're creating, your company, and how they can order some?
Well, it's quite easy. It's goodlifecoffee.fi.
Goodlifecoffee.fi, as in Finland, as opposed to SE in Sweden. So Good Life Coffee, and I'll have all this posted up. So you're listening in on a podcast and all, you'll have that information there. Especially if you're walking or driving or whatever and can't write that down, we'll have it posted up. So also, I'm curious about the Silja, about the coffee culture in Finland. When people come to a cafe, is it like in Sweden they have fika, where they come for an hour, they sit, they have coffee, they talk, they have a bun. In Norway, they sit and talk. Maybe they don't have a bun, and in Copenhagen, it's very much like Sweden. What is it like there? What's the scene when you come to a cafe?
Here, I think it's people are meeting their friends, but they are also coming alone and maybe working at a cafe
Mm-hmm.
or reading a book or
Right.
just drinking the coffee and going back home.
Do
So
they sell pastries and
yeah,
things like that
yeah,
in most of the
we have
cafes?
our own cinnamon bun.
Ooh, yep,
It's almost same
right,
in Sweden, but
right.
not.
It's always a little different. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to that tasting that. Now, do people come and bring their computer and work in the cafes as well?
Yes, yes, that's a common thing.
Yeah, so it could, because in the States you have lot of everything, and I think that but a lot of times people come to the cafes just to be alone and work. In Europe, I notice, especially in up north, northern Europe, where you are, there's a little bit more socializing. Okay, here's a question I have for you. I'm familiar with the winters in Sweden and Norway, and it gets dark early, and the sun comes up late and goes down early, so it's
Yeah.
dark, and oftentimes this leads to a lot of coffee consumption. And in the United States, Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, San Francisco, especially Portland and Seattle, have similar climates to Nordic countries, and there's a lot of in the winter people go in and they consume more. Do you notice that there's more coffee consumed in the months when it's dark in the winter than in the summer when it's the sun's out almost 24 hours sometimes?
Mm, I can't really see the difference
Okay.
with coffee. I think mostly in summertime we have also quite a cold summers. This
Mm-hmm.
year was um, not so cold, but
Mm-hmm.
normally. So people are still drinking a lot of coffee
Right,
as
right.
well.
This past summer, I was in Sweden and Denmark, and it was the hottest summer in history. In
Yeah,
The Swedes didn't know how to deal with it because there's no air conditioning, and it
yeah,
was very. Did you also have a very hot summer in Finland this
yes,
year?
we did. Yeah.
Right. And some of the cafes were complaining because they were selling more ice drinks. And do you have that in Finland as well?
Yeah, we quite many cafes are serving cold brew coffee
Mm-hmm.
um, and ice lattes,
I saw
of
that, yes.
course.
And also I'm also curious. In the States, we have like Starbucks. They're everywhere, and
Yeah,
it's a good, but it's not what it's nothing against Starbucks, and it's a great starting point for a lot of people. But it's not as refined. It's not as specialized as it's not as high quality as specialty coffee shops. In
yeah.
Sweden, they have like Espresso House, which and some Starbucks, but Espresso House is one of these chains that's everywhere. Do you have a chain like that in Finland as well, or is
Well,
it
the
all independent?
espresso house is also
Oh,
here.
so they're also
Yeah,
there. And now
yeah.
Espresso House was just bought by, I think it's JAB, this
Mm-hmm.
big company out of Germany. So, but even though they have places like Espresso House, places like Starbucks, specialty coffee still seems to be growing.
Yeah,
Are a lot of new specialty cafes opening up in Finland as well?
yeah. There is quite many, actually, quite many roasteries
Mm-hmm.
in Helsinki. They are small,
Mm-hmm.
but it's really interesting and nice to see how many new roasteries has come
Right.
in in 5 years
Oh
now.
wow, that yeah, and in the United States, when you hear Finland, you think and you get something from Finland, you always think it's got to be very high quality because they do very quality work and everything. So whether it's a blanket or a sweater or a coffee, we're going to assume here we may pay a little bit more, but we know it's very high quality. At least that's the reputation I've always associated with Finland. And do you have in the community of roasters and baristas and whatnot in Finland? Do you is it very collaborative? Do people work with closely with one another, or is it very competitive? What's the kind of the atmosphere or the feelings between the different companies and roasters and cafes in Finland? Do people get together and
Yeah,
meet
yeah.
up a lot?
Uh,
Yeah.
I think we have quite a nice
Hmm.
and warm um, community in
Right.
specialty coffee. Finland is so small country that almost
Right.
everyone knows each other.
Everybody knows each other, right?
So I think the community is nice, but we could have a bit more some events
Hmm.
and be sharing our thoughts
Hmm.
about roasting. The specialty coffee business is. is growing, and people are really how to say, inspired,
But
and
inspired and yeah, and
yeah.
learning from each other. Do you do you yourself compete, go into the competitions, or is it something you would ever consider doing if you're not doing now?
Um, I think the cup tasting competitions
Mm-hmm.
are nice for me because
Right.
I'm a roaster and I do that quite a lot
Mm-hmm.
at work, cupping coffees. But the other competitions, I'm not so interested
Right.
to be on stage.
Right,
So
right, right. I
I,
totally understand it. It's I've been to many competitions, and it's very nerve-wracking. It's I don't think I would enjoy it so much, although I'm not skilled. But even if I was, I would see where for some people it's great. For other people, maybe it's something that they don't get involved in. What is your coffee consumption like? How much coffee do you drink in a day, and how do you drink it?
I mostly drink filter coffees.
Mm-hmm.
Mm, if I'm when I'm at work, I drink maybe maximum 3 cups
Mm-hmm.
per day, and on weekends something similar, like maybe 2 or 3.
Do you use like a
So
Chemex, a
not
pour over like that, or how do you make it yourself? How do you like it?
I'm how I make it at home.
Hmm.
I use V60 or Aeropress.
Okay.
Now my dad stole my Aeropress because he he got so
Eh,
uh, interested about coffee,
Uh-huh.
which is really nice.
Uh-huh.
So he's practicing with that.
Oh, nice. So by the way, on my podcast, I interviewed, I can't remember his name now, but I interviewed the gentleman who invented the AeroPress. He's, I think, in California or Seattle. I met
Mhm.
him at I met his people from his company at the Seattle Coffee Expo, and I got him on, and it was very interesting. And when I travel now, I always bring an AeroPress with me because it's easy to pack, and it's
Yeah,
easy to clean, and it just but you know the V60, the Chemex, they're all good. It's just
yeah,
but the AeroPress. As a matter of fact, this right now, we're in September 2018. I think this past weekend there was a AeroPress competition in Sweden in Stockholm. Do they have competitions in Helsinki often for different types of coffee competition events?
yeah. We had a couple weeks ago also Aeropress uh, championship here in
Mm-hmm.
Helsinki, and it was really nice to see that there was over 30 people participation to the competition,
Mm-hmm.
and there was many new people also, not only professionals, also the people who are just having a hobby with the coffee,
Mm-hmm. Nice. It
like
gets
home
everybody
Yeah.
inspired. Your Good Life coffee roaster. If somebody goes there, do you have a cafe there, or you just
Yes,
simply? Oh, you do.
we do. We have a cafe in Kallio in Helsinki.
Mm-hmm.
It's a hipster area.
Oh, nice. Well, what we'll do is I'll send me that information as well, and I'll make sure that's posted up. Because when I come to Helsinki, which is hopefully in the spring or whenever I get in that area of the world, I will definitely come to Good Life Coffee Roasters. And I love to go different parts of the world and experience specialty coffee because it's always a little different in every place, and it's just fascinating. And to me, and you meet the most interesting people in these
Yeah.
cafes, and you meet incredibly interesting people in the coffee industry. Uh, what are your plans for the future? Will you like to continue as a roaster, or are there other things in coffee or wherever that you'd like to do?
For now, I think roasting is so interesting that I want to do that some
Right.
years still. But I also have a dream that
Mm.
I could open my own coffee place, a
Uh-huh.
cafe.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm
Let's
sure if
see
you
what
have that dream, it will
happens.
happen. And then if you opened a cafe, would you roast and barista, or would you would you roast and then get the right people to do the barista end of it?
I think I when I if when I open the cafe, I maybe stop roasting and
Hmm.
focus to the atmosphere and serving the coffee.
Great.
But still being in the specialty coffee business. So
Fantastic.
yeah.
Wonderful. So, um, again, any final things you'd like to mention or tell our listeners about this area of roasting that you're in? Is there anything we left out?
Hmm. That's a tough question.
I think we probably covered everything. And
Yeah,
great, great. And then right now it is September. What's the weather like in Helsinki right now?
it's a bit rainy,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's really dark
Mm.
because it's evening.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's autumn weather.
Right. It's a beautiful part of the world. And right now, I would say the Nordic countries, in many ways, are certainly leading what we would call specialty or third wave coffee. It's really caught on in the U.S. There's places like Seattle and Portland and now New York, Chicago, all the major areas that, Los Angeles, where it's just growing like crazy. People's appreciation of coffee is becoming more and more sophisticated. I like to say it's like wine was 50 years ago, where it used to be all these blends, and then people got into individual grapes from certain regions, or like craft beer is a few years ahead of coffee, but it's really refining one's taste buds in some way, and experiencing coffee in different ways like that. Your last cup of coffee you had, what bean was it?
Last cup of coffee.
Yeah,
Uh, it was Kenyan coffee from Solberg at Hansen from Oslo.
right.
Hmm.
Nice, fantastic. Well, Celia, thank you so very much for taking the time to come on. And again, I'll have the information about Good Life Coffee Roasters posted up. Check out their website. Uh, Try some of their coffee. You'll ship anywhere in the world, is that correct?
Yes.
Great. So that's everything is available to everyone everywhere. So that's the world we live in. Thank you so very much for taking the time to come on.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Coffee League, found at thecoffeeleague.com. Find us or follow us on Instagram at the Coffee League.